Hello all, my name is Saikar Bisam, and I'll be talking about the effect of chromium dyes from the textile industry in the city of Fez, Morocco. So just a quick background. The tourism industry constitutes 7.1% of the Moroccan GDP and is second in only to the phosphate export industry. The textile industry has a huge cultural connection also with its past, and it shows how intertwined both the economics and the social aspect is within the Moroccan country and the life of Moroccans. The textile industry also attracts a huge number of tourists, and as a result, much of the country is dedicated in trying to keep up with demand. So continuation, with so much reliance on the tourism industry as well as deep cultural impact, this leads to a few problems. The government itself is very pro-business and very pro-tourist, so there isn't many regulations in place to protect the workers. We can see this impact due just on the way the GDP is split up by sector. Services constitute almost 56%, which is where we get the tourism industry within that, as well as other industries like telecom, finance. Then we have the industrials, like whether it be production of manufacturing or mining, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, agriculture, mostly farming, livestock, and exportation of those sort of products. So the production process. The textile industry is heavily reliant on the older methods that date back to the Middle Ages. In fact, one of the textile production places, we can call it, has its roots since 1000 AD of the Middle Ages. So it's an old method. It's mainly vats of water, dyes, and various other chemicals, including chromium, are all mixed, which is then used to turn the hides into proper leather. They wash it, clean out hairs from the hides, and put it out in the sun to dry to make sure they can make 100% proper leather. The implications of this, though, is that the workers are not protected. Men are standing thigh deep in these vats, and they're all out in the open sun. They even use bird poop and cow urine as other materials to really clean up the leather. While it does create quality leather, it has a putrid scent and the potential for microbial infections. Most importantly, though, this isn't contained to just that part, but it's rather extended out throughout the city because the dumping process isn't regulated. So majority of this leaks into either the waters or into the respective water channels. Not only is there huge human damage, whether it be because of the carcinogenic nature of chromium or the microbial infections that can happen, but it's also the contamination of the environment and the drinking water for the rest of them. No safety gear around, and there's a lack of education and safety training, mainly because many of them are not forced necessarily, but are in these situations to try to provide for the family. So they don't understand the implications of what they're dealing with. So just a quick biological basis of the CR poisoning. Chromium is a toxic metal, and the way it appears in nature is very oxidized. As it gets reduced, reactive oxidase species, or ROS species, are created, and which can lead to DNA damage. On top of that, CR3 itself can bind to DNA and fully stop its functioning. CR pollution also happens environmentally, where it's being dumped, and because of its ability to go from oxidation to reduction really easily, it can change the solubility of the water surrounding it or the pH, which can help the solubility of other toxic materials and whatnot, affect the quality of the river. Dyes pollution is also existent. This is mainly due to these organic compounds that could devolve easily into benzene and other dangerous molecules. The preparation of this involves treating with formaldehyde and bleach that themselves are poisonous in large quantities, and these potential products could enter the body either by inhalation or ingestion. So here's just a quick graph showing the overview of the waste product that was produced from one of the textile sludges. As you can see, there's so many toxic metals that are way above the limits of what humans can handle. So just a few stats on the dangers and the disease that the people are facing. Recently, they were only able to pick up on these stats and were able to keep track of it. So from 2004 to 2010, we saw from a retrospective study that out of the 5,532 cancers that were screened, the mean age of the patients was 53 and a half, and 52% were male. Men also saw predominantly lung, colorectal, and urinary cancers. In this graph, in this table, we see that the disproportionate amount of cancers that are towards prostate, lung, colorectal, and that's due to the fact that with the exposure of these areas to the chromium itself, because of where they're just standing for hours and hours on end. So a few solutions that were actually come up. One of the main solutions that were coming up was the use of regulations, primarily from governmental standpoint, to try to make sure proper waste management is practiced, as well as proper protection of the workers. Not to mention, there's many modern refineries that are coming out in Morocco. Although it doesn't have the same aesthetic that attracts many of the tourists, it does keep the worker safe and produces just as much of a quality product. Although the product now will be used as a raw material in the production process for further things. A more interesting solution that has recently come up was the use of bacteria actually to eat up the heavy metal toxins. This could help with so much of the waste that's there, especially the chromium. So, in summary, the people of Morocco are heavily reliant on textiles and service industry, as we've seen with their percent GDP. As a result, they're using outdated methods because they don't have the proper investment to get it, or it's so reliant that it's just impossible to change. The use of chromium dyes leads to dangerous health effects, but there has been changes going on, and many people are trying to really help with not only making sure that industry is okay, but the surrounding environment of Morocco and the city of Fez is okay. Here are my references.